I thought it came off.
One day it'll translate live. Wouldn't that be cool?
Hey, you might be able to. So,
Actually, I just met a CEO at our Austin happy hour that has that capability and is putting it in play with companies. Isn't that
Wow.
amazing?
That's going to be one more thing to go wrong, and we'll be talking away, and everybody will like, you're in Japanese,
Yeah,
we can't repeat you.
yeah. So should we get started?
do it.
So, hey, welcome, folks. Welcome to our May edition of our Edge meetings. I have a pleasure of hosting Stephen, that I've known for a few years now. So, welcome, Steve. Steve, to the show. I'm your host, Ravi Walanki. So, Steve, I'll let you introduce yourself. I know that you've done a variety of things, which out of which lean is probably your most prominent one, but I think what something that would be good for us to kind of think through is, everybody thinks about lean as something only big corporations need to think about, or something that you have to be at a certain revenue mode to be able to think lean, right? But I think you have a different perspective in terms of how you think about lean, or how you think about leveraging lean more from a growth and a capacity perspective, right? And I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on why you think that.
Yeah, the wonderful thing about lean, and you might get dazzled with classes with all this, statistics. But the thing about lean is it's very practical, and it's pencil and paper. It's easy stuff. But operationally speaking, like you said, it doesn't matter about what size of company you're in. And even though it's been popularized by manufacturing, it didn't start that way, and it came from everywhere. As a matter of fact, your grocery store, one of the invention of the grocery store itself was adopted in manufacturing. So we have what they call supermarkets because they stole it from the idea of a grocery store. They have little supermarkets for their supplies and stuff. So it size doesn't matter. The industry doesn't matter. If you have something coming in, you're doing some activity to add value to it, and then you're selling it, whatever that is, a product or service, it doesn't matter. If you've got a process, you can do lean. And the way you need lean is there's something, your process isn't giving you what you want. It's taking too long. The quality's not great. People are getting frustrated. It's let's spend some time thinking about what's wrong and try to make it better.
Okay.
So a little bit about myself. I've been doing this. I've got a background in industrial organizational psychology. Most people in my profession have an engineering background. Organizational psychology is how the study of how people work together. So it totally goes hand in hand. But the engineers, there's a lot of engineering in this discipline, which I had to learn that along the way. But they're good at, it's a lot of the problems are kind of mathematical. And you have brought up capacity, Ravi.
Mm-hmm.
So the capacity, do we have enough capacity, and why don't we, and how much do we need to fix it, is a math problem. You bring in engineers and they can look at that and map it out and say, okay, example is a project I did in an orthopedic clinic, huge orthopedic clinic. And you walk in there and there was a line going to the elevator. And there was a huge waiting room and they were full. And all the exam rooms were full. And they said, my goodness, we're going to need millions of dollars to build a whole new floor. But before we do, let's call Steve just to make sure. And I went in there and I started calculating how long it takes to do every task. It's very simple, just literally just sitting there with a stopwatch. How long does it take to do this stuff? And what I figured out was everybody was waiting on the X-ray. So the rooms were filling up and patients were sitting there not talking to the physician, just sitting there waiting for an x-ray. So they're like, oh my gosh, all we needed was another x-ray. So that's just kind of an example of it, but it's just, you know, there's some math involved here. So if you guys are any questions about, oh, I didn't finish telling my background. So I've been doing this for 30 years now. Most of it, 20 years is in manufacturing, including the first company was a small company. As a matter of fact, the second one was even smaller. It was 300 people. So I've done it small companies. Most recently was with Baylor Scott and White, so it was quite big. But like I said, any industry. I've been in printing, also another small business. Healthcare. You can apply it anywhere. So I'll go ahead and jump in, and I'm going to start off with asking you guys some questions. If I can share.
Be able to see.
I'm just making sure I'm getting the right screen here. Oops, I think I'm not getting the right screen.
You're sharing your, I guess you're sharing your notes as well, right?
Yeah, it's sharing the wrong screen, but I want to try it again. Guess I'll do that screen. How's it look now?
Yep, we got it. We can see it.
Okay. Good. Okay, so here's the agenda of what I'm going to talk about. The first one is that the exercise I'm going to ask you to kind of get your mindset about how do I know what I need in terms of lean and process improvement. And then we're going to talk about the goal. The goal is cheaper, better, faster. Sound good? Cheaper, better, faster, right?
Yep.
And then I want to kind of caution everybody, if you're a small business and you're wanting to consider, hey, I think I need to do some process improvement. I want to caution you against what I see as a very popular approach is to just go in and just do projects. And I want to caution that although that is necessary and you do need to do projects, it's not going to be enough to get you where you need to go. And I'll explain to you why that's the case. And then I'll give you a vision of what you do need. And it's the vision is called the Toyota House. And then once you've got that vision, I'm going to say, well, here's typically what you'd expect to get as results as you're building that Toyota House out. Some time for Q&A, and then if you want to pursue this on your own, kind of look at this further on your own. I have recommended reading that I have used extensively as kind of a guidebook to how to implement that Toyota House.
Right. So okay. Hey Steve. Yeah. So the exercise is that your inception point, like at from where you actually figure out, when do I even start looking at lean as a tool? Is that
this is I want, instead of me trying to convince you to do lean,
right?
My approach is to ask you a question and get you to realize it yourself. And the reason why it's important is because you don't need other people telling you. You can see it yourself.
Understood.
And
good point.
The other thing is that once you can see it, then you're also empowered to say, well, wait a minute, is it actually, as I'm working on this, can I see it getting better? Can I see that I'm getting what I'm looking for? Right.
Right.
So that's me the first question. So I'll go ahead and jump in there. There are 3 pictures at the top of the screen, and these are the Forbes most admired companies. This is just a sampling of them, but I wanted to make sure I picked them from different industries. So, but my question to you guys is, I want you to think about a company that you really like. And it can be anything. It could be maybe you moved from one city to another, and you changed dry cleaners, and you really like the new dry cleaner, or perhaps you really liked the old dry cleaner. It could be a dental office. It could be a restaurant, a gas station, a retail, fast food, sit down restaurant, whatever it is. Think about a company that you really like, and think about why you like them. Okay, so we've got at the top left here, we got Chick-fil-A. They're consistently rated at the top. There's a Chick-fil-A in my neighborhood. I'm in West Frisco, and there's one at the corner there, and then across the street from that Chick-fil-A is a Whataburger. And when you look at that Chick-fil-A, there is a huge line of cars. Always a huge line of cars going through that place. It is incredible. And when you're driving around town, notice when you see a Chick-fil-A, notice the drive-through. See how many cars are in that line. And if you do go in there, or if you're paying attention long enough, look at how long it takes people to get through that line. The Walmart or the Whataburger across the street can have one person in line and take longer than 20, 30 cars at Chick-fil-A. Okay. And then you got REI here. You can see the example, the customer like trying something out on the table, and the staff there's always well informed and helpful, right? And then the top right there is Quick Trip, and think about what you expect to see when you go into any Quick Trip anywhere in the country, right? These are just the big examples, but think about your local dentist, dental office. We've got a pediatric dentist our kids have used, and they knock it out of the park. I mean, it doesn't matter what you throw at them. They never even flinch. They're always on time. They're always smiling. They always know who you are and why you're there. And we always have a wonderful experience all the way out to the billing part. Everything, they never make a mistake. And we had to go, we switched areas, and we kept the pediatric dental, but we had to go get a new adult dental, and the new one, not so great. So you got some recommendations. All right. Okay, you're thinking about that for a little bit. All right, now let's think about the other side. Again, any kind of business, think about the ones that you really don't like. You've been very upset, perhaps something recent. You switched, dry cleaners or, dental offices, as the example I gave earlier. You go to one restaurant, they mess up your orders pretty consistently, and then, what is it about these places that you don't like? So as I'm doing this exercise with you, are there any observations in the group? And you don't have to name names if it's a bad example, but what do you notice about the difference between a good business and a not so good business?
Communication. AT&T raised my bill and didn't tell me why.
Aha, yeah.
So I had to call them and go through the phone chain, and they weren't sure, and it just kept going on until I got an explanation.
Wonderful. It's the opposite of the example I gave of the pediatric dental. I mean, as soon as I walked in there, they knew who I was going to get because I was the next appointment, right? And I walk in, they have a pretty good guess who I am, and they know why I was there the moment I walked in. And then you got other ones, and they're like, they don't talk to each other, right? And it almost sometimes it feels like they even within the company they're competing with each other, right?
Yeah.
You ever walked into a place and the person who's supposed to be serving you has a look on their face like they wish they weren't there? Yeah, great.
Hey, I'd also
Hey,
think
no-
it's not just bad products and bad services, it's bad business models. And like I'll resonate right now, I've been a Dallas Morning News subscriber and I've got too many journals. So I went to go cancel and I get online and it literally says that unless you're in these 4 states, you have to call them to cancel my subscription. Which does not, and so here's the bad press is I'm going to tell 10 people and I got a chance to do that right now.
Right.
Dallas Morning News. Be careful.
Yep.
So
David?
I really appreciate that example. Let me chew on that for a sec. So when you do call them, do you sometimes express your frustration to the person on the phone?
No, I'm not. I'm just reminded when you brought this up that I need to call the damn Dallas Morning News. I haven't done anything yet.
Well, the point I was making is, especially when you got lots of people in your business and they're all, not necessarily talking to each other, but the person who's talking with, who's the face of the organization, who takes the call from Dallas Morning, because every company has problems. Even the good companies have problems, right? Everybody's got problems. But when you have the person who's answering the phone and the customer says, I was very frustrated with your phone tree, or I'm frustrated that I was able to do it online in another state, but not in this state. I'm expressing to you that I don't like your service. The frontline person is aware of that stuff. Just like if you're in a clinic or in a hospital, the nurse is going to take the brunt of all those complaints.
Right.
So they are your eyes and ears to your customer. You need to know what those people know.
Hey, Steve, I just
Yeah.
have one more comment, then I'll let David go with his question. So I think from a question, I think for me, what resonates is customer focused, I think, right? And I can give an example, right? So we went to an ENT specialist. I think this ENT specialist was a little bit different, where he focused more on diagnosing what the root cause is rather than just giving you a list of labs to run and trying to figure out, hey, let me look at the results first before I talk to you, kind of thing. His approach was a little bit different, where his normal time with the patient is about 45 minutes, which is like I've never seen any doctor in the current day who spends so much time understanding the patient, understanding why things are not working, looking at previous things that we've done, and then coming back with, hey, based on all the things you've done, here's what I think is happening. Let's kind of try this out. So focus on diagnosis of the root cause was something I liked about this practice. So just FYI. So
Wonderful segue into my next slide, Robbie.
Yeah, let me see if I know that David raised his hand before, so I just want to see if he gets.
And Robbie, by the way, because of the way I have my screens and the way I'm sharing, I can't see your camera. So yeah, just if you could tell me whoever's up.
I'll make sure that, as people raise their hands, I'll make sure that we stop and address. Yep.
I appreciate it. What I see the difference is good processes, well-trained people, the appropriate technology, and those kind of things. When you look at good compared to bad service or products and delivery. So it's a number of things, but I think it's consistency.
Mhm.
I can go from Chick-fil-A to Chick-fil-A and my experience is very similar or the same. But I go to an underperforming organization and it's almost ad hoc each time. And so I think it's
They're
consistency
reacting.
from process. Yeah. consistency from process, well-educated folks to deliver the services that align with the business.
Right.
Any other questions?
Hey, Steve, this is Bill
Yeah,
Gordon.
I got
Yeah.
one more, Bill.
Yeah, I was just going to comment. I've heard the customer focus. I've heard to me, a lot of this is just, looking at it as an end-to-end process. Because a lot of manufacturers focus on the product, the service. It's getting the food to the person, but the end-to-end process is from the time you start your process to when the customer, drives off, right? And when companies look at the end-to-end process, then they're looking at each one of those, as you talked about. There's a problem in the process where the X-ray waiting for that. So
Right.
you got the X-ray, you got the result, but the end-to-end process was inefficient. So to me, it's, as management, when you look at the end-to-end process, then you can focus in on each one and the handoffs and the flow.
Excellent. Yes. Great observation, guys. Okay. So if you guys ever have seen this is the quality triangle. So we're looking at all these things together. We want it to take less time. So if you look at this, you could see that these were from your comments, right? It's all embedded in here. We want it to be better, cheaper, faster. All three of these things together. We want them better, cheaper, faster. The reason why we're not, there's all these things that are acting on us. Life is acting against us every single day. Okay. So if your end-to-end process is mediocre, you need to be acting to overcome that. And you need to be acting to overcome life every single day, continually acting against you. So if you sit still, you're going to be falling behind, right? Your people change, your customers, there's changes happening with your customers, your suppliers, your competition is always acting against you, right? The methods are changing, equipment, materials, the environment, requirements, technology, there's constantly things acting against you and your team. And you got to spend time. All these things are just, hey, we just need to spend time reflecting on it and working on understanding what it is and trying experiments to see if we can fix it. But you need to be doing it and ramping up the scale of that activity. So the question is, how much time is your organization spending chopping away at these problems, and how much discipline are they using when they're chopping away at the problem? So what I mean by discipline is it's not just that they're in a room thinking about it and trying experiments, but they're getting good at it. They're getting good enough that when they solve a problem, it's for good. It doesn't come back, right? Have you ever had an experience where you had an employer or a team, and they've gotten together in a room and they've looked at a problem and they've understood it and did something, and it seemed like it got better, right? But over time, it seems like the problem reappears. There's discipline involved in how do we make sure this doesn't happen again. Are people, and someone already alluded to this earlier, but are the people trained? Are there, do we understand what the work is, so that it's reliable? We're going to have to learn some discipline along the way. The good stuff about this is you don't need a lot, and this goes back to what Ravi was saying, is you don't have to be some big sophisticated company to do this. You can start small. Spend a little time thinking about it, working on a problem, trying to make it better. Your discipline is maybe not there, but that's okay. You'll learn along the way. But the challenge for the organization is whatever time we're spending on making things better, we need to ramp it up. Okay. All right. So I know don't be too dazzled by this or too distracted, okay? These are just some examples of different ways, and this is nowhere near exclusive, but these are different examples of things we do when we're doing process improvement and lean to make the process better. In the top right those are called T cards. Very, very, very simple. Okay. It's a little small, but you can probably see, and tell me if you can't, can you see where it says time 15 minutes?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean,
It's kind of small, right? But you can see it. It's red and it says, it's got some name on it. It's got something you got to do and it's 15 minutes. That is a task that has to get done by somebody, right? Somebody's got to do it. And guess how long it takes to do the task? 15 minutes, right? You can tell. And if it's red, that means it's not been done. If you turn the card around, the other side is green. And you can see one of them has been turned around and it's green. So when you're looking at your supervisors and they're spending a lot of time orchestrating all the work and making sure it's all getting done, they're spending a lot of time doing that. A T card system puts that into the hands of the front line. They don't have to wait for the supervisor to tell them to do something. As soon as they don't have a customer in front of them, they can go to the board, see a task that has to get done in the amount of time that they have available, complete the task, turn it around, and everybody can see that they are the ones that completed the task. And it's a tool to help a team become more self-directed. They call it a self-directed work team. So the team is starting to do work automatically. They're not waiting for direction. They're doing it on their own. And the team is getting better at being fair with each other, right? It's like, why is Emily always doing all the work, right? And Tom never does it. Well, if that's happening, it's starkly visible on the board. And the people, Tom, who's not pulling his weight, is going to feel pressure to do it himself because it's pretty obvious on the board that he's not doing it. All right. So that's just an example. It's called the T card. Very easy to implement. I have a little spreadsheet that, you just type in the stuff and it prints it off and creates the cards. Easy peasy. The bottom right kind of goes along with that. It's called a skills versatility matrix. So you got all the people on the team, and at the top, you don't have to worry about what it says. It's just, but the top is a list of all the tasks, all the skills that are required inside the team. So if somebody has to run the report, the monthly report, who is trained and qualified to run the report? Okay. So if you can see the key there, the red means that they're in training. Green means they're qualified, so they're able to do the work. And blue means they're an instructor. So if you go to the board and you say, hey, I'm Larry, I'm at the top, I'm qualified to do one task, but if I want to get trained on the other task, I have to go look for someone who's got a blue for that task. So if you're going to that, the one where he's green, if you go follow that down, you can see Tom is a qualified instructor. Larry can take the initiative and go reach out to Tom, say, hey, Tom, I got a little bit of time here. Can you mind training me on this next task? And then again, it's putting the onus on the front line to do these things without waiting on the leadership team. So you're taking that work that, the supervisor, the frontline supervisors, all completely full, occupied, and can't do any development or all the things she wants to do because she's having to firefight and direct people. This is slowly getting those things off of her plate and putting it onto the team. And they're able to do that because they have visual tools that make it really easy for them to delegate that out. Okay. Any questions so far? Because I'm going to go through some other examples. Any questions, Robbie?
No, not yet, not yet.
Okay. All right. The top one, these are just some caps for IVs, but what we did there, this is for something called built-in quality. So what we want to stop having all these errors, right? It seems like, and those are in some of the examples where there's constantly frustration and problems and mistakes happening. We want to slowly work through this pile of mistakes and make sure they don't happen anymore. So one of the things it's very, very dangerous is if you've got a central line, that means you've got an IV that's going into your and accessing your circulation system. Those kind of lines are very dangerous for introducing infections, and it can kill you. Okay, so we need to change out the little caps there. We need to change them out every 12 hours. How do you know if it's been done? Okay, so if you're really busy, you can't tell by looking at the hub if it's been changed or not, the cap. If you can't tell by looking at it. And there's no records, and it's like, what are you gonna do? Stop and ask somebody? They already left for the day. Like, how do you know? So what we did was those caps, they have the middle one's clear, and the other one was blue. And we switched from the blue to the clear. Okay, when we started the project, that just happened to have happened. And I said, hey, do we still have the ability to order the blue ones? And they said, yeah. And I said, fantastic. So we're going to order half clear and half blue. And then blue is always going to be night shift. And clear is always going to be day shift. And they only use their own caps. So when you look at it, if you're on day shift and it's a blue cap, you know that no one's changed it yet. Just a very simple little indicator that says if it's been done or not. Below is a supply room in a hospital. And you can see all the different bins with all the different supplies in there. And the nurses would spend time looking. They had to go find what they needed, get all the different supplies they needed, and they would have to scan out each item and go into the computer, log in, scan out the item, apply the item to the patient for everything they had to get out of the room. That's a lot of extra wasted energy. And then these nurses do it every single time they go to get something. Very frustrating. And there was also a lot of poor compliance. Nurses weren't doing it. So to solve the problem, we have what's called a 2-bin system. So instead of nurses having to scan every time, they don't worry about it. For each supply, there's 1 bin in front of the other. Okay, so there's 2 bins for a supply. When you used up and emptied the front bin, you took that empty bin and placed it on top of the rack and brought the rear bin forward. And then supply would come into the room, pick up all the empty bins on top, replenish with the new bin and stick it in the back. So you always have the oldest ones coming into the front and being used first, and then the newer ones are in the back. So you never have expired items, and you don't have nurses scanning anymore. And it's so easy for supply. They just literally just grab up all those bins. So these are just like examples of easy little tricks that take all this busy work and confusion and mistakes and make it much, much easier and simpler and faster. The top left board is when you have different people on your team doing different tasks. There are different colors or different tasks, and each one represents how much time it takes to do all these tasks. So for the first one, their amount of work, they're overwhelmed with the amount of work that they have to do. Okay, And so they're having mistakes because they are being rushed and just don't have time to get all their work done, and they're always running behind and they're always getting in trouble. But when you're looking at people in the office or in the factory, you can't tell that that's the case. The only way you know is if you stop and take some time and quantify all the different work that they're supposed to be doing and realizing these guys are overwhelmed. And then you do it for everybody in the team, and you look at it and you say, well, operator 2 has more time available. Let's shift over the work from the person who's overwhelmed and balance it across the team. Okay. That kind of activity it's easier said than done. Okay. And it starts to get a little complicated. So for example, let's say operator 2 can't do the extra task because they don't have access. Okay, we got to give them access. They're not trained. Okay, we got to get them trained. Or they're afraid to take on the extra work because sometimes, every once in a while, one of the tasks takes a lot longer than it normally does. So what are we going to do if that happens? How are we going to protect them? Who's going to step in and kind of help out? So all these things are no problem. We can work through them, but it starts to get complicated, right? All these little problems are showing up. The bottom left is called a motion map, and it's just like it sounds. We have a drawing of the floor, of the space, and you can see the team, and each person is a different color. You can see them walking through the space, and you can tell the person in red, and you can see the trail of where they're walking back and forth and back and forth and back and forth all day long. Look at how far they're walking, right? Walking is time. So they keep leaving the space and leaving the customer to go fetch something. So when you get this motion map, you realize, man, what are you going back there to go reach every time? Is it possible that we can move that closer? Can we put a cart together with all those supplies and move the cart closer to where you are so you're not leaving the customer every time to go get it?
Hey, Stephen.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
So you mentioned 30 years earlier. So I used to work at United Parcel Service when I was in my 20s. I was fascinated by the industrial engineering. If you pulled a UPS truck around to the gas pump, you didn't sit there and wait on the gas pump. Everything's measured and ticked, and it was fascinating. Can you? I'm looking at your graph and I'm like, wow, that was all human measurement, and now everybody has a watch on. So these motion patterns are much more analytic now than they used to be even 10 years ago, probably, right?
Yes. So my boss was working on a project, and it was about, if anyone's been in the hospital, when a doctor says, hey, good news, you're going to get discharged. And they tell you that at 7 o'clock in the morning, and at 4 p.m., you finally leave. Okay. So, and that's not an exaggeration. That's actually probably pretty normal. So so you're sitting there at the edge of your bed waiting all day long to get out of here. Right. So he did a project and looked at how much time, you're talking about like how many steps you take, but if you translate that, walking is time, right? So my boss measured how long a nurse takes when they're doing a discharge, just doing the discharge process, walking back and forth and doing all the stuff they need to do for a discharge. And they calculated how many discharges do we get in a day? You do the simple multiplication, and that time equated to 5 full-time nurses doing nothing but walking. So yeah, great example. So time is money, right? So these are just, like I said, this is not intended to be exhaustive. But I want you to get a sense of, okay, we can do it. And there's a lot of work to do, right? You know, I also want you to notice, look at how simple this stuff is. This is all very, very low tech, right? This is pencil and paper. This is Post-it notes, right? Very, very, very low tech. Anybody can do this. The problem is they need time to do it. You see the challenge? They need time to do it. Okay.
Hey, Steve. So
Yeah, go ahead.
is it fair to say that process efficiency or lean is more about doing the right things at the right time and not necessarily just looking at automation or IT for every solution as a solution every time?
Oh, good question. When you're looking, be very careful with technology, because what technology does is it freezes the process.
Right.
Now, if you've got a really great process and then you freeze it, that's it's fine, right? But if you have a really terrible process and then you implement technology, it's going to freeze your bad process, and it's going to be really hard to overcome it. You're going to have to change that. You're going to have to spend money to change the technology again, right? So the examples are certainly with software. Software has a very spelled out process. You have to go through the steps in the software, right? So it's the process is now dictated by that software. Another example is, and you can see this in the motion map on the bottom left. Those shapes are walls. Okay. The walls, the space, when you design a space and you decide where you're going to put the equipment and the power and all that stuff and put the walls up, that freezes that process.
Right.
So if you've got people walking all over the place, you need to do an improvement project before you design a new space.
Understood.
Because once you put the walls up, you're pretty done, right?
Right.
So it's like, yeah, you need to work on the process before you implement stuff like that. Like before you, buy the equipment and decide where it's going to go. Talk to the people who do the work first, right? So yeah,
I got one more question.
Yep.
David, do you want?
Oh, Stephen, just people need the time to do it, and they need the motivation to do it. And then secondly, your point about processes. In all my years of consulting and system implementations, it was never about the technology. It was always about the process.
Right.
It was flawed, or they didn't do what you just said. They didn't map it to the system. And
yeah,
it was always about that. Change management issues. Enough said.
yeah, it's normal when I get started in an organization that they don't appreciate it. It takes them a little time before they see some pilots, and they'll see a small example, and then they start saying, now I know what's going on, and now I know to call him earlier. So it's but the entire organization is learning every time you try something. So in this screen right now in front of you guys, you got all these different examples of different types of improvements you can do. T-cards, skills matrix, the 2-bin system for the supplies, balancing the workout. Once you've done a single pilot, not only have you balanced the work in the balanced work board, but the people who are on that project know how to do it. So you do one pilot, and now those people have been developed and learned. They've now had the experience and confidence of having done one.
Right.
Could they help with implementing a balanced work board at another location and another step? Now they're more confident to be able to do that, right? So, and this gets at the problem. I want you guys to see this problem. If you hire a quality guy, a consultant to come in and help you, what I typically see is you come in and they come in and do a project. All right. When they go and they look at a process, and the balanced work was an example. You remember how I said that if you try to move the work from one person to another, it gets more complicated. It's not as simple, right? They have to have access to the system. They have to be cross-trained. You have to figure out, like, if they get a task that takes longer than expected, how are you going to make sure that they're not overwhelmed and have a problem? It starts to become complicated. It's like a can of worms, right? You open up a can of worms. So when you go and do a project, and this is a really simplified example of it, you have all these ideas and you can grid them out. This is called a 2x2 matrix, where they sort and decide, of all these ideas we can do to improve, which ones are we actually going to try to implement? Okay. And you organize them by how big of an impact it can have and how much effort it's going to take to implement it. And then the team says, well, you know what? Let's only pick the top 3 because these are, like, they have a bigger impact and maybe aren't as hard, right? So this is what happens when you get a project. They can't, there's a limit to how much they can do, right? And these problems in these examples I gave you, it's like, it's overwhelming. There is so much work to do. And these projects, if we hire a guy to do a project, that's barely pecking at this thing, right? So my message with project teams is you have to have them, but they're not enough. So here's the challenge. We know that we can do it, right? We can learn how to do this. We can learn to do pilots and all these different examples of ways of improving and spreading it and get disciplined and all that stuff. But we can do it. But we need the time to do it, and we've got to have the experience and learn how to do this. So the question is, who is doing this work, and when are they going to do it? That's the challenge that we're faced, because a project team, they're great. How many of those are you doing in a year? Not many, right? So any questions, any thoughts on how to answer this question? Do you appreciate the challenge in front of us? We need to give our people more time to reflect and think and experiment. Any comments or questions yet?
Is there any CFOs on that call? So I've crossed over this time to think model with some oil and gas companies out of the Houston marketplace in the past.
Yeah.
And I think it's stellar. I think it's a great concept. But when it really gets down to the bottom line and what people are doing during that time and such is where I see some of that falling down. Just from personal experience with, smaller employers, somewhere up close to 200 or under.
They don't have, I'm trying to understand what you're saying. You say they don't have time.
They don't, yeah, I mean, obviously you spend more time, right? I understand the concept, but, like huddling the teams, like around wellness would be an easy way for me to express it. We got a wellness initiative. I'll even take it down to, maybe if your employees are not working out, maybe you shouldn't make them work out during the lunch hour. You should give them an extra hour to take care of their personal health. Obviously, the long-term effect of that and the cost is tremendous, but the CFO or the bean counter in the organization comes and goes, 2-hour lunches. I don't know about this stuff.
Yes. Yeah, that's the challenge is like, well, how do we get this to happen when we're first of all, we're all busy, right? When you're in an organization that doesn't have a good process, everybody is busy because they're dealing with firefighting and chaos and they don't have time. That's always the way it is when you start. Nobody has time and they don't have the money to spend on this stuff, right? So it's like, well, how do we solve this problem? How do we get the time? And so here, this is the path forward.
Hey, Steve, I got.
Yeah.
there's a question, so I just want to make sure that.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Question.
Yeah, hi, this is David. It's been my experience, I built many a 2x2 matrix and did capacity planning on my resources and all that. But I also experienced a culture where the very most senior level, although I was a CIO, did not want to commit the time because of, I would just classify it as wasn't educated in this, that the benefits you would get out of looking at processes, improving processes. I agree with your statement about projects. I had a project list that would go a mile long, but how do you help address this with, let's say, the president, CEO of organizations that just were really unwilling to commit to this kind of approach?
Yeah, and if the mechanism for doing this improvement is to take people away from their work and stick them into a conference room, ka-ching, 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 right? It's like it costs money to pull them away from work, and it takes time that we don't have, right? So if there's a few projects, maybe we can handle it, but beyond that, it's just we're not going to get there, right? So I'm with you guys. So bear with me for a sec. What I'm trying to show you right now is called the Toyota house. Okay. And so when you're trying to get out of this conflict, this problem we're addressing right now, when you're trying to get out of that, the path forward is analogous to building a house. Okay. When you're building a house, you start by building a foundation, and then you move from the foundation to start putting up the walls, and then the roof goes on top. Okay. So the path forward is like, we've got to get capacity for improvement that doesn't cost us a lot of time and money, right? And we've got to get a lot of it and scale it up and start working through this pile of work. And so it starts with that foundation. The foundation are things you're wanting to get improvements to happen and get people talking about problems and how to make it better while they work. Okay? Taking very, very little time, but making it happen with, and I'll show you how that works. But see this in the middle here? It says our goal. I don't know if it's kind of small, but that is an example of a huddle board. And you alluded to it. It's like, if we have a huddle and spend 5 to 15 minutes with the team talking, can they talk about what problems they have and come up with ideas they can try while they work to see if it works? And can they tell if it works and see the progress on the board? When you make it visual, like an example I gave with the skills matrix, when you make it visible, the team can start doing the work and not need all this management, hand holding them and guiding them through it, because they can do it themselves because they can see what they need to be doing. Okay, let me go into this a little bit further. So when you, like I said, when you typically think about this, you've got projects, right? The projects are the ones where people are in a conference room, you're locking them in there, they're spending money and all that stuff. What we need, and you can see from the image on the left here, is you need lots and lots of ideas from your team members, things that they can notice problems, come up with ideas, and try them while they're working for free. Okay, lots and lots and lots of these, and the structure for doing that is a huddle. So an example, this is a clinical example. I've got a manufacturing example at the end of this thing, but this is a clinic example. And what you've got in the middle there, see if I can.
Hey, Steve, just doing a time check. I just want to make sure you're okay with it. So there's.
Yeah. Well, I want to give them the answer to this thing. So can you guys still see my screen or no?
If you want to make it bigger, that'll.
I'm
We
trying to
lost
blow
it.
this up so you can see a little bit better. So
We lost the slide.
ah,
Yep.
okay, you're not seeing my slide yet.
We can see it now.
Do you see our goal, ideal patient care?
Yes.
Okay, okay. So in the middle are the like, hey, we've got a problem. I noticed a problem. They write it on a post-it note, stick it on the board. Okay. Either they have an idea or they when during the huddle, they come up with an idea and they say, hey, let's try this or let's ask for help. And you can see that as they're progressing with their ideas to being completed, they're moving to the right. So when you have a tool that's visual, everybody, you don't even have to know anything. You can walk by the board and see what's happening. You can read through and you can see what kind of problems they're noticing. You can see what they're doing to try to fix it, and you can see what's been completed. Everybody can tell by looking at the board, right?
In the
So
land
you
of
can,
in the land of transparency, as a patient, I would want to be able to look at this board, even not from just the medical provider, right? If it was transparency, which is obviously a theme in the hospital industry right now, that, you know, if your board was tidy, you would, as a patient, be able to see that everything's being done, right, Stephen?
yeah, actually, this is our dirty laundry. But the reality is, yeah, if you start paying attention, you will probably see huddle boards in hallways that patients can walk up and read them. So anyway, but this is the way out of it. This is like you're asking your front line to say, hey, you've got a chance to have your own huddle board, and you're going to talk about your own problems, what you don't like, put them on the board, and you're going to the things that you guys can do doesn't cost money, it doesn't hurt anybody. Go for it. Just do your experiment, and we're going to leave you alone with that, right? And then and leaders come around and ask them, hey, what are you working on? Show off what you've done. And how can I help you? What did you notice that you have a problem that you need leaders to help on? And as you're doing this, you're building out a system that is generating daily improvement going on that's not costing money. And this is where you remember how I said some of these problems are too complicated for a project. Now you don't have that problem anymore. All those complicated things, the staff can work on every day while they work, and then the complicated stuff can bubble up to the projects. So hopefully that helps to explain how you get out of the mess of, we need more improvement, we need more time, and you're basically carving it out from doing improvements. If you're having less errors, you're spending less time dealing with those errors, right? If you're delegating more work from the supervisors down to the staff, if you're making the bins easy to replenish and they're never running out of supplies, it just starts to calm the process down. And you're getting far more improvement. A Six Sigma guy can probably do 8 to 12 projects in a year. I, by myself, was getting close to 200 because I wasn't doing them. They were. So it's like, you need to scale beyond what a Six Sigma black belt can do. You need to have everybody doing. All right, questions?
Are we good on time, Steve? I just want to.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
And I just wanted to end with so here's some typical results that you would get as you're going through the lean journey, and I can answer questions on that. This is a book I highly recommend if you are looking to go through this, to build that toad house that I was talking about, and you want to learn about the different tools in it and how you would go about doing this. This is a wonderful guide on how to do that. Are you still seeing my screen?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, this is the book by David Mann. Excellent. I've used it for years and years. All right, questions?
Have you ever applied these concepts to the wellness industry? Have any wellness clients? I mean, there's a big disconnect of, like, I just took your ideal patient care board, and ultimately there's a lot of things a company can do that don't cost money to improve the health and wellness of their employees, which is a big deal to RFK Jr. if y'all are reading the news, right? So ultimately, just getting the colas out of the place and replacing it with healthy beverages, making sure the traditional vending machine comes out. So I see that board operating on the backstage for a company to help them with their wellness initiatives. Have you ever worked on anything like that, or would you like to call me after this meeting?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk to you. I have not. I've seen wellness things happening. I haven't done them myself, but
It's not working.
Anybody who's doing any kind of work, ask them, do you get your lunches and breaks and leave on time with no work remaining? Why not?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When you're going through your day, what do you not like?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I'm asking these kinds of questions is because if this gets to the incentive, like, why are people going to do this? Because they benefit from doing it, not because it's being mandated, not because the company's telling them to do it. They're doing it because I know if I put it on the board and I talk about it with my team, my life is going to get better. The patient's going to get better. I'm going to get better. This is so frustrating. Let's see if we can make it better. But I'm happy to talk to you afterwards. And my contact information is in here.
I got one more question.
Mark, did you have a question?
Yep, Mark. Yeah. You're on mute, Mark.
Is that better?
Yep,
Yeah,
we can
gotcha.
hear you now. Yes.
There we go. Sorry about that. So on the huddle board idea, help me understand, are they small steps, small changes that people are seeing, or is it, a forest for the trees scenario where some changes are really more impactful because they are changing a systemic problem and not a point issue that's created out of the fact that the process is not well designed. Does that make sense?
Yes, it's all of it. Okay, so let me give an example.
And how do you resolve conflicts and one person suggesting that they make a change and they start making a change? Well, then this other's going to negate that because the change they're making is going to eliminate that step altogether.
Well, I'm going to address all of those issues. So one of them is, hey, this is something we can try on our own. That's one thing we can do, and these are examples of that. Okay. The other one is we have a problem or we have an idea, but we can't do it. We need leadership to spend money on capital or something. That's called an elevation. And that card would travel up to another board that's higher up. Okay. And then there's the third thing, which you alluded to, Mark, perfectly, which is this is a problem that is between disciplines. And we have we have boards where people huddle that are designed to be between disciplines. So those would be elevated to those boards. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So these cards don't just, they're actually, if you imagine all these huddle boards across your organization as being like a web, they're connected to each other.
Got it. Okay. And I assume somebody is accountable for taking the ideas and determining how to move them forward.
Yeah. So the way it works is that you'll have your team will have your own huddle. Mm-hmm. And then as the manager, you're going to go to the manager huddle, right? You're going to take all the elevations from your team's huddle and you're going to move them up to the management huddle, and you're going to raise them there and talk about them and then get the feedback and then bring it back to your team. And likewise, it kind of cascades itself up.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
No, I think
that fantastic job.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you.
Hey, Don,
Hey,
and I'm happy to talk further because you'll have trouble getting me to stop. But
No,
I'm
I
happy
see
to
the
talk.
passion and the energy and what you're doing. I love it. And I think that there's a lot of stuff that corporations, small and large, are going to have to deal with over the next 5 years. And they need help in a lot of areas, obviously.
Well, and those were real examples. When I said, you can do maybe a dozen in a year, and I was getting hundreds. If my organization is getting hundreds of ideas a year, and you're not doing this, you're going to get crushed, and you just you'll not be able to catch up. You can see the avalanche. But that's what you need. That's what you need to get to overcome, like what I was saying earlier. Life is always acting against you. You have to be going faster in improvement, not just to get to par, but you got to go faster than that because it's constantly getting more complicated, right? Your competition is not just sitting there. They're constantly working against you. They might already have got huddles going.
Hey, Stephen, this is Bill Gordon. Can I just comment one thing? This is an area where I've spent a lot of time. I've been in the warehousing area with this, a lot of process, a lot of labor, right? And we had a similar process to this. One thing that will kill this faster than anything else is when things don't get implemented, when they are raised up to management and they sit forever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we always had a process where once the stuff went on the board, it has to be reviewed by a management team member. Somebody's assigned to it. They have to go out and talk to the employee about what the idea was, identify how it could be implemented, move forward. And we could see the difference, right? If an idea went more than 30 days and it wasn't acted upon, all of a sudden the number of ideas would just plummet. If they got acted upon, the ideas would just keep coming in. You keep getting savings, you keep getting quality, right?
You said it perfectly. So that was our practice as well. We just asked the question, what would be reasonable to expect to hear back? And we just naturally come up with 30 days. That's about right. So yeah, I agree with you on that. All right. Yeah, thanks, Adrian. And then so the challenge you have is, hey, there's things that are going to kill it. That's part of the learning itself. I mean, Bill, you guys did an experiment and you guys said, hey, let's see if we can figure out how to get feedback to the team within 30 days. And you probably didn't do it the first month. You probably are all screwed up and people didn't do it and you had to work it out. That in itself is also an improvement. Yeah. Good. Any other questions?
Yep, I think this has been very helpful, Steve. So thank you for your time. I think what's awesome is actually you walking through the examples and kind of, I think my input is like, I think, the obvious reaction to most organizations when they have a problem is to kind of look outside. But I think some of the examples you pointed out, it's not so much about just going outside and finding help. It's more about answering that question, hey, what do we need to improve on? And finding ideas within the organization first, making sure they're sustainable, and then figuring out if we need additional help from outside.
Absolutely.
Yep.
How many ideas are already inside your organization?
Right.
And it's pretty crazy to think about this. Like, how many people do you have in your organization? And how many ideas are you getting a day right now? How many are you not getting? Like,
I mean, they have a different word for it. They call it innovation, which kind of beats the point. right? But I think that's kind of, I think we need to kind of rethink and how we think about solving something, right? So
When your whole organization is doing this, they are more resilient. They're more innovative. You're more agile.
right.
Absolutely. Yep, Monica. And it's like I said, life is working against you. If you're not innovating, if you're not agile, you're going to get crushed.
That's true. Yeah, agreed.
Is
And
Monica,
I enjoyed it. And
is
I'm happy to
Monica,
come back and talk more technical too.
is Monica speaking Chinese down there in the chat?
Maybe my grammar isn't so great. I was trying to say dying. Companies that aren't innovating are dying.
Monica, thank you for pulling us together.
Absolutely. I
I'm
learned
so
quite a
appreciative
bit.
of it.
I loved it. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye, guys.